there, and thank you for joining me today. Welcome back if you're a returning visitor. Welcome to the channel if you're a newbie. This video is part 2 on the Master Numbers series. So if you haven't watched the first one, you might want to watch it because we talk about the 0 and some of the first parts of the Master 11 on that, but of course it was too long. I had to split it in two. So we're going to complete the Master 11 today, and then we'll take a look at 22s, and we're coming very close then to look at what day numbers mean. So I'm kind of doing it in an order where it will be Master numbers, then power numbers, and then day numbers, because the power numbers have relevance to both ruling numbers and day numbers, which I will talk about to you when we get there. So as previously discussed, and just a reminder, a person's ruling number only provides generalist information about a person. It's more complex than simply the ruling number. So we can't look at it and just go, well, this is their ruling number, this is what their life is going to look like. It's going to be more than that, because everybody's birth date is individual. It includes obviously things like their astro, their time of birth, the numbers on their birth chart, and all of this kind of thing. So it's fairly complex. But what we also know is that with a master number, these are the birth dates that when all the numbers are calculated, it ends up being an 11 or a 22. Now, there is also debate about whether or not a 33 is considered to be a master number. Dr. Phillips is pretty adamant that the 33 is not a master number, it is a power number. And he was, of course, very familiar. He studied Pythagoras and his approaches to numerology, and is probably one of the most reputable Western numerologists out there. So for your information, I've put the 33 into the power numbers instead of the master numbers. And if we get time, we'll talk about power numbers today, but I have a feeling it's going to be another video. So last week we took a look at the number 11 as well as the number 0, which isn't a number, but we only had time to look at the 11, the 2911 and the 3811. So this week we're going to look more specifically at the individuality of the 4711, 56, 65 and 74, because of course this gives a little further insight as to how people born under these calculations, how the 11 will influence their lives. So people born with the numerical sequence of 4711, this is a combination that carries many character tests across the life path, and sometimes they'll be pushed to the extremes. The advice is that they'll need to use self-discipline to ensure that they keep that balanced expression of their emotions. The obstacles that they face, so this is an important reminder for them, are designed to teach them to have emotional stability and to hold it. They can be very diplomatic, quite determined when responding to challenges, and they have this capacity to adapt to most circumstances with grace. We should always be encouraging them to write their goals down, so that they've got a practical target to try and achieve, if you like. They need to be able to look at something tangible, and part of their role is to inspire others. And it is this capacity, because this is an inherent trait that they carry, you know, they're very popular, and this business of being able to inspire people actually enhances their popularity. Generally speaking, while they've got challenges, they do tend to have a lucky aspect to them and good fortune. And that could be, you know, like winning the lotto, stuff like that. So while there is always a risk for everybody, if they put the love of the material above the love of people, that they might actually lose themselves in the fantasies of this luxurious lifestyle, you know. But they know deep down, even if they end up being distracted by, you know, wanting to have the life's little perks, whatever the words are, they know deep down that material pleasures, they're not lasting pleasures, they're not fulfilling over the long term. And so for the people with the 4711, they understand that if they're selective with their associations, they're going to develop their wisdom and expand their spiritual consciousness. So we would be encouraging them to let go of any materialistic desires they might have, and to control any emotional indulgences, and that way they can continue to fulfill their path of inspiring and guiding others, because they really do shine, certainly when they're living upwardly, and they can then fulfill this task of uplifting humanity, because that is actually their life path goal, their primary one. So when we talk about balance and focuses of attention, I probably should have said on the previous slide that if somebody is not emotionally balanced, then they might experience symptoms of emotional dysregulation. So for the 4711 to avoid that, they need to really monitor their emotional balance. Then with the 5611, this is about balancing thought and activity. Okay, and this will be the most challenging aspect for them as they live their life path. Often they may have had a difficult time during their early childhood years, but these have taught them some really paramount lessons about perseverance, emotional control, and of course the balance that we're talking about. And this lends, or these traits lend themselves toward character strength and the ability to use wise discernment and be discriminating through their associations. Obviously they learn from the past. So while this number does carry an enormous amount of nervous energy, they are guided. So the 5611 is encouraged and guided to stabilize thoughts with emotions and to be centered and grounded in the way they approach their lives. And this demands a level of self-control and the wisdom to be able to understand themselves, what motivates them, what triggers them, what drives them. They're very perceptive when living upwardly, of course, and they do have this capacity to identify and connect with most people. There is a tendency for them to rely on their feelings as a guide. However, they're encouraged to use their feelings combined with their intellectual powers of discernment. And this will help to establish peace and harmony, not only within their family unit, but also their business associations. For these reasons, meditation is really encouraged for the 5611. It will help to bring about that peace that they need and the spiritual understanding that they seek to make meaning, I guess, of the life experiences. They're very much the peacemakers of the world, and they can make excellent diplomats and mediators, and to be a living example where they inspire others to live upwardly as well, just by being their authentic selves and retaining that balance, that grounded, centered approach to problem solving and just walking the talk, basically. So people with a 6511, that vibration, or this vibration, tends to bring prosperity, success and material recognition to the person. So the blessing for this number is that there is an ease of manifesting. Okay, if they need something, if they want something, they have an inherent capacity to just manifest it. But before they can create abundance, they've got to first learn to be able to direct their organisational skills and their energies into this cohesive, positive direction, as well as learning to persevere with their goals. Now, what that means is, obviously, if you've got a goal, you've got to break it down. There'll be structures, steps. Phase it out, and take that practical approach. But the thing is, the 6511 will probably be doing this anyway, because they also, because they can be successful, they tend to fall into positions of authority that are also associated with power and wealth. I mean, I don't have any examples of this from a famous person perspective, but there is leadership and ambition associated with this numerological combination. The success, of course, because there's this humanitarian underpinning for this number, there's still a focus on doing humanitarian good works, if you like. The key point here with this balance is the ego for them, because obviously if you don't manage the ego, it can get out of control. And because they have this success, there is a risk, of course, that they'll put the focus onto egotistical pursuits, shall we say, or perhaps, I can't think how to actually describe this right now, so I'll let you work that out. Anyway, it's also associated with karma. It's that knowledge of what goes around comes around. So when the 6511 is living uprightly, they are aware that when they are kind to people, benevolent actions do actually lead to karmic rewards as well. And they get this, the karmic rewards tend to come, goodness me, I'm struggling over my words, with the support from prominent people or people in prominent positions. And this helps them to go into positions of influence, which of course is their destiny if they choose it, right? And this would mean working, say, for an organisation that does humanitarian works, that, I'm trying to think, there is, what is it, Doctors Without Borders or something like that. These are the kind of activities I would expect a 6511 to be on, but not necessarily on the ground floor, more on the upper levels of the executive, because they have that managerial capacity, they have those organisational skills, and because there is this desire that's inherent to the 11 to uplift humanity, I can see them going into those type of roles. And this will also, of course, help to raise their own personal awareness and their spiritual consciousness. So where the 6511 was associated with karma because it understood that what you give, you receive, and that giving precedes receiving. For the 7411, it's actually about balancing karma. It's kind of like time to pay the piper, so to speak. Generally speaking, they tend to be graceful and sympathetic as people, and their task is to achieve mastery over physical matter and the accumulation on the material plane, because obviously material success is something that they also can do quite well. They do have unique approaches to practical problems, so these are character traits, and they have the determination to strive for and to reach their goals. And their goals generally, once again, because of being an 11, are to make other people's lives better. Now, if they're firm in their convictions, through persistence and patience and perseverance, success is pretty well assured. You could find them in areas of work such as doing business reformation, maybe they're business improvement officers or whatever. Humanitarian, of course, once again, trying to improve work conditions for people might also be a job that they would do well in. It could be actually doing organisational, goodness me, what is the word, policies and procedures to make businesses more human oriented, catering to the worker needs as opposed to being purely financial money making ventures. They also are astute with money. They recognise that material resources are a form of energy flow, and that if you can keep the money coming in, then it paves the way for a more expansive and evolutionary progress. As I said before, the 7411 does carry the karmic obligations for this lifetime, so there is a balancing of outstanding debts from past lives, and the approach that they should take when it comes to their actions should be, I don't like using the word should, right? They would be well advised to make sure that the actions that they take are based on sharing physical and spiritual rewards with others, because at the end of the day, I don't think I actually need to say this to an 11, because the 11 is already going to understand, I would imagine, there would be very few of them that don't, that we are all connected at some level. So this is the brother and sisterhood, do unto others, if we want to put that in there, that there's this recognition that what we do for one, we do for all. So there's a generosity involved with this. The tarot card, of course, is the Six of Pentacles, which refers to coming out of emotional turbulence and going into the calm. So the 22, of course, is a master number. It's actually thought by many to be the most powerful number in numerology, and I probably would be inclined to agree when I really break it down and look at it. And this is because it has the practicality of the 4, because, of course, 22 is 2 plus 2 equals 4, and it has the insight of the number 11. So 22 is quite often referred to as the master builder. Now, as a ruling number, it indicates sensitivity and the mystical, but at the same time, it appreciates law, order, systems, structure, construction, that kind of thing. There has to be an organisation to it. So it is two opposite vibrations, and that can make the people with the 22-4 a bit difficult to understand, and even actually the energy of the number difficult for those people that have got it to understand. Once they've mastered the vibration, there is absolutely nothing that they cannot achieve. It's extremely powerful, and it can be, the energy of the 22 can be utilised for some really tangible and practical realistic goals for the good of humanity. So if a person's born with this, they have the potential to accumulate great power and wealth, and to be basically considered one of the master builders of the world. I probably should actually, we've got so many billionaires these days, I wonder if it's worth me doing a chart on each of them. Anyway, people with this number combination would be reminded that the 22 is actually the ancient numerical symbol for a circle, back whenever, which is actually the symbol of infinity. So they tend to be highly spiritual, ethical, hardworking, emotionally controlled and practical a lot of the time. And this provides much of the wisdom that they end up carrying or developing. They have great leadership capacities that guide and motivate humanity towards peace and health and understanding. This is part of the pathway, and love and happiness. Now, on a negative aspect, the 22-4 can actually be quite ruthless and insensitive to others around them. They can actually become a bit dictatorial and obsessed with their own power, or live in this fool's paradise and achieve absolutely nothing, because it comes down to choices. When we're talking about numerology, we're talking about potential. So there is this amazing potential for people that have got a master number, ruling number rather, of a 22, the 22-4. So for the purposes of this exercise, what I've done, as with every particular video that I do, is I find some famous people with the numerology sequence. And you can see here I've got a number of them, but within the regard that the 22-4 is supposed to be so powerful based on the energy of the vibration and have this visionary humanitarian aspect to it, what I did was I explored these four guys to see if they do. And I've got to admit, it proved to be fairly interesting. So Frank Sinatra, of course, we have a really, I don't know about you guys, but certainly for myself, I think of him as part of the Rat Pack. I mean, obviously he was before my time, but I think everything that I've ever learned about him was that he was part of the Rat Pack and he was associated with the mafia. And yes, of course, he was a crooner, and he's famous to this day for his singing. But when I do the Google on him to see if he was actually a humanitarian as well, he's actually known for philanthropy and charitable deeds. And some of his notable contributions include his support for civil rights causes. He was involved in fundraising for medical research and treatment, and efforts to support underprivileged children through various different organisations. Neil Diamond has also been involved in philanthropic endeavours, and how's he made his impact? He's also helped to advance medical research, protect the environment, support education, and been involved in the provision of humanitarian aid. I'm not quite sure exactly how, but that's there on his bio. Clint Eastwood, now he's a bit interesting because where the other guys are directly referred to as being humanitarians and involved in charity work, Clint has been associated with the rights of animals as far as charity work goes, but he also has received awards of a humanitarian nature, but not through his charity work, through the fact that he's been the director of movies telling the untold stories, which is quite interesting, especially the one that he did on Japanese-American battle in World War II. So that apparently has been contentious. Now, Luciano, oh my goodness me, he is actually remembered on the United Nations website as being a messenger of peace for nearly a decade before he passed away. So his cause apparently was to alleviate the suffering of children in war-torn countries, and apparently he did this by generating millions of dollars in humanitarian aid. He staged concerts, he marshalled talented friends to raise funds, and the website says that he lent his name to the reputation of the United Nations to promote its efforts to protect human rights for refugees around the world. So we can really see this coming through with these four men, interestingly. So for today, I chose to look at Ruby Lee a little more closely because I find her to be a very interesting young lady. For those people that aren't aware, she came to the attention more recently on the world stage through The Voice USA. She's a country singer, but she can turn her very unique voice to any style, actually. And while I'm not into American country singing, or yodeling for that matter, she was inspiring to watch. She was amazing at her audition, and I don't know how many times I've watched that audition now, playing it over. I actually love it. So anyway, I thought, we'll look at hers because she is only young. She hasn't even made adulthood yet, and she came runner-up in the actual competition when it ended. And she certainly, of course, is at that age where, not winning might impact on her dream. I certainly would be encouraging her to pursue it because she does have that talent, but also because I believe it's her path. So this is going to give us a little bit of insight. If she happens to watch this video, let's hope that she takes heart from it, okay? So basically, when we look at her birth chart, we can see a few things right off the get-go. Well, in fact, actually, let's look at her birthday first. She's got a couple of zeros there. Now, I don't know terribly much about her. I don't know if she's, if her family is one of the Puritans in the Bible Belt region or whatever. But in which case, if she is, it's probably taboo for her to embrace her inherent spiritual gifts or psychic abilities. So in the first case, I'll say this is potential that I would perceive that she'll have. And that is that she could probably step into her psychic gifts with quite ease. What else? I've written all these notes here. Look, based on her ruling number, she will get there. It's up to her, obviously, to develop the gifts and focus on her goal of being this singer and career person, if you like. She actually has so I want to note this, in her birth numbers itself, it is really, really powerful, just in case she ever doubts herself and her own abilities, right? In the first instance, the ruling number of 22, as we say, is considered to be a number of infinity based on the ancients, but she's also got a day number of 8, and that reflects infinity and power as well. So it's kind of like this double whammy of power and manifestation capacity and material success. But the thing is, with a day number, people have to be very cautious that while that's there, because it is a number of material success as well, that when a person puts, I'm jumping the gun a bit because I'll be doing a video on day numbers very soon. It's an alternate path, and it kind of happens without us putting effort into it. The ruling number is the primary path, but the day number is an alternate path. And the advice basically is you focus on achieving your ruling number pathway as opposed to the secondary pathway, because usually if you turn around and say, well, I don't like the idea of being, let's say your number was 7 or whatever, well, I don't like having a ruling number 7, I'd rather have, live by the energies of my day number. Well, that usually ends up being disastrous for the people. So the idea or the advice for Ruby here would be that actually don't focus on the material success. Don't worry about the money aspect of it. Of course, be rational, be logical, put your energy onto achieving the vision, because the financial success will very likely occur if she is able to stay true to the purity of her vision, which is the singing career which she wants. So then let's take a look at the birth chart. She doesn't have an 8 on the birth chart, so normally this would be a problem for people, but because she's got a ruling number of 8, that's compensated. When I say it's a problem for people, it just means that they have to apply themselves to be able to develop their wisdom and independence for the more fulfilling life, and that actually takes effort and organisation. So because she's got this as her day number, well, it comes to the total of 8. It's going to be a bit easier for her. Okay, and then she doesn't have a 9 on her birth chart either. So that would indicate that actually this business of material focus probably won't be an issue for her, because without a 9, these people tend to be not as egocentric, and they're not usually as ambitious as other people. And also, there is this added bonus of being or having the potential to be mature and to make wise and healthy decisions, certainly for the good of humanity. So, I mean, they're all really good signs. Probably the biggest issue for her based on her birth chart is that she doesn't have a 4, although there's missing numbers as well. And all that means is that it can represent impatience. And frankly, I would imagine now at age 16 and having just missed out on winning The Voice, that she probably is very impatient and wanting and chafing at the bit to achieve her goal. I find it quite amusing actually when I look at her birth chart, because the arrow that is on there is actually called the arrow of poor memory. So to be able to do what she does, which is obviously play she plays the guitar and she sings, she would have to have a good memory to remember the words and to remember whatever it is that you do when you play guitars, the notes, that kind of thing. She would need to have that. But interestingly, the fact that she's got a missing number, I think it's the 7 on the birth chart, actually, not the 7, which one is it? It must be the 6, right? That one says that they need to practice and work hard to retain memory and to build it, right? But because she already is musically talented, that will have compensated. But I'm just going to read the notes that I've got here on what this arrow of poor memory means. It doesn't mean that there's no intellect or that they're unable to think, because obviously this is the power of the mind. It just means purely that they're going to struggle to retain information and that they will need to work very hard to keep their memory active. And it carries a caution that if they decide to become mentally lazy, that their creativity and idealism will lose this keenness and passion. So she will have to make an effort to make sure that she doesn't get slack and lazy with her thinking, which it's very tempting for all of us that are human at different times. It's not generally perceived to be a major problem until midlife, at that point in time people can become a bit childish, and if it's not put into check, it can then advance into dementia, according to Dr. Phillips. It should also be pointed out that we can actually counterbalance memory problems by being really diligent, I can't speak at the moment, and putting more time in, especially during their formative years. This is probably about the neural pathways, actually, if we want to translate it into modern lingo, because cementing those pathways when they're young, basically they need to be trained to develop, I'm talking about children here, to develop the power of concentration, because this will be vital to the development of their memory. And also, if it wasn't Ruby, if it was just anybody else, we would be encouraging a child to use their creative abilities through arts and sensory awareness, and including involving them with nature as part of helping them to develop their memory further. Now, the advice, particularly with this, if you've got a child that is born with a 22-4, the recommendation is that they not start school before the age of 5. Not quite sure why, but there you go. That was from Dr. Phillips. So, based on that little tidbit, I'm going to finish for today, because we've now completed the 2 master numbers, which is the 11 and the 22. And next week we'll take a look at the power numbers. And this way, I think all of our further videos to do with numerology are actually not going to be as dense or consolidated as what the last ones have, and that'll be good, because I know that they're very long. But anyway, so for now I'm going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. If you want to leave questions or comments, please feel free to. I love to see the comments, I love to see the feedback as well. and I'll catch you on the next video. So until then, take care, my friends. Have a blessed day, blessed week. See you around. See you soon. Bye bye for now.